What the world needs now is it's a great theme to start off with. And friendship, I've been given friendship to kick us off. So yes, I feel like there's been the urban retreat starting. There's been a real buzz around the centre, which I've been enjoying, and lots of energy. And as Pranya Manas was also saying, we launched our restaurant cafe as well on Saturday, so that created a real buzz as well. In a way, as I'm sure you've already heard, being part of this urban retreat, well, I see a retreat as a treat is basically an opportunity to retreat, from, at least in this context, urban retreat from some aspects of our lives or from our normal everyday routine, and actually give ourselves what we really, really need. Give ourselves a treat of body, speech and mind. On this program, on the urban retreat, the program is really full, isn't it? You can do yoga in the parks, you can do exercise and get the big experience of nature. Just saw you two look at each other and go, wow, yes, yoga in the park. Go along. There's Qigong as well. So if you haven't tried Qigong, that's another form of body-mind sort of exercise. And there's poetry, there's obviously meditation. There's loads of things going on. It's sort of really touching all aspects of ourselves. And then of course you can now go to our cafe where you can eat food prepared with mindfulness and loving kindness. So a sort of as full of experience you can get while still being at home. And the point of going on retreat is that you gain some perspective on your life. So you gain, as has been said, you gain a sort of view of, really how you're living. Somehow by being on retreat, by taking yourself away from at least some of your life, you go back to your life and you notice more. You sort of see yourself more clearly. You see others more clearly as well. And you experience life a little bit differently. So yes, it's great to have this retreat going on, and in a way that you can still sort of, in a way, do both side by side. You're sort of having this experience of being in this intensive environment, meditating more intensively, connecting more intensively than you normally might, but then you're going back to your everyday life as well, and just noticing the shifts there. Of course, we do lots of residential retreats. That's what we're sort of one of our mainstays. And we've had a whole summer at this centre of lots of residential retreats. So there was a summer open retreat. I don't know if anyone was on that summer open retreat. Oh yeah, you were there. We had the men's intensive, people on the men's intensive, women's intensive as well. And then we had a week-long people of colour retreat as well. So I was on two of those retreats, the women's intensive and the week-long people of colour retreat. And I have to say that, I love going on retreat for all kinds of reasons. And every now and again, you never know actually what a retreat is going to be like. You set all the conditions up, good food, countryside, a program of activities, the content, teachings, practices. You set up all the conditions, and then people arrive. And then in a sense, whilst there's leadership on a retreat, you get the teaching and all the rest of it, it is quite co-created, because it's like all the conditions that come together include everybody on the retreat. So you never know what the actual retreat is going to be like, even though you've set up really good conditions. Fortunately, what I can say for sure is that pretty much every retreat I've been on has had a deeply transformative effect. Sort of very beautiful. There's something very beautiful about being on retreat. And then the last two I went on, there was sort of the kind of beauty of it, even the magic of it made me stop and ask myself a question, which was, what is really going on here? Like, I know there's the food's good, the weather was pretty all right. I knew our theme was great. I knew we were doing lots of meditation. But I knew everyone who was coming along to the activities, they seemed very open as well. Seemed very receptive. They were taking in what we were saying. and they were connecting well with each other. So all those things were like, oh, this is all going really well. And I still thought, what else is going on here then? So rationally, I could sort of see that, but there was something else happening that felt to me very palpable, and felt to me was somehow having a real influence on the retreat, without us sort of consciously thinking about it, as it were. And what I thought, well, I think the two retreats, what they had in common, beyond all the kind of conditions we normally have, was a team. So every retreat has a great team, but a team where the friendships in the team went back many, many years. So on one of them, the last retreat I won, the friendships went back almost 30 plus years. And in a way, there was a core of people who had known each other for all that time, through our ups and downs, through our sort of joys and challenges. And in a way, that core of people had started sort of opening, in a way, sort of extending their friendship to more and more people. So both retreats that I was on in the summer had that real depth of connection and friendship. And somehow I just wondered, I mean, it's not a definitive answer as to what else was going on these retreats, but I kind of wondered, I thought, is a retreat the same if there aren't the sort of levels of friendship there? Somehow, me seeing that these two particular retreats had such a depth of friendship made me think that is communicating something just by us being together. And I think obviously it creates a lovely, friendly atmosphere, because it means that even if you're brand new to retreat and really nervous, you're walking into a space where there's friendliness and there's people who are at ease with each other. So in a sense, you're kind of getting that sort of vibe, as it were, straight away. But also, I think there's also a shared experience, knowledge, understanding that is almost just happens between people. And one of the things that happens on these retreats is that people often say, when we teach, like, how did you know what I was going through? It's almost like you were teaching just for me. So you get that comment quite a bit on retreats. And I think it's partly because, we're all very, over time, we become very in tune with each other. If the team are very in tune with each other, and there's great friendships and connection and mutual understanding, mutual forgiveness even in the team, somehow that gets communicated, because each member of the team sort of feels very valued and seen and recognised somehow and loved. And so they then can serve and connect with everybody else. So I think that's part of what was going on in those retreats. There was a depth of friendship among the team. There were friendships in the retreat as well. And somehow that created an atmosphere of trust, of relaxation. And also, like, there is experience here. We can lean on each other's experience. We can learn from each other's experience. And we can actually trust that when we share our experience, it will be held. So that was very beautiful for me, and created a bit of magic, I would say. So, and actually this centre, you could say, this very centre is also built on friendship. There were friends that started this centre. They literally painted the walls, built the floor, put the floors down. They did it together. And they did it together because they wanted to, actually help each other grow spiritually, dharmically. And you could say that even the inspiration to forming this centre came from a friendship as well, came from a lineage of friendship. I think you could trace all the way back to the original Buddha. That would be quite a thing, tracing back this lineage of friendship all the way to the Buddha. So I don't know how many people have meditated in this room, but this is not a space that's a neutral space. Many hours, thousands of hours of meditations happen in this space, and thousands upon thousands of people have come here, shared their experience, many talks. It's all here, and we're sort of benefiting from it just by turning up and just by being open to it. So yeah, I was on this retreat, and I was musing about friendship, because I was feeling something tangible on these retreats. And I shared some of my musings one day with the retreatants, and it made me think about people that actually have really benefited me. And I don't take for granted the fact that my practice has come from my efforts and equally, if not more, other people. So for me, I remember coming here at the London Buddhist Centre, not knowing, anybody really, and I'd seen a picture of a woman who came from the same she was Caribbean background, and I thought, I heard she goes to the London Buddhist Centre, so I just hung out, and was coming to classes, listened to teachings, and then one day I saw her and I introduced myself to her. Her name's Muditashri, she's still around. She took me under her wing. She just was interested. I went for a cup of tea, thought, does she like me? Do I like her? I thought, yeah, it feels all right. And next thing we were meeting. So I don't, and then she took me under the wing, and not only that, she then introduced me to her friend as well. So her friend also took an interest in me and was asking, about my life and practice and encouraging me as well. So before long, I knew from not knowing anyone really, I suddenly had these two people who I thought, I think they like me. I think we can be friends. So coming here, I remember a point where I didn't really know very many people. I wanted something. I didn't know if I'd find it, but the search was there. Being on retreat, I was musing about my friend Muditashri. I was musing about the very first time I encountered the kind of, the Triratna community at large. So my journey was very much basically picking up a leaflet, no internet in those days, picking up a leaflet, going along to a Buddhist centre, sort of just like, it was friendly, it was fine, then going on a weekend retreat. Really like the weekend retreat as well, but still kind of not sure. Is this for me? I think it could be for me. I'm not sure. And then one of the guys on the retreat said, "Hey, there's an event happening in London," and I'm from London, so I thought, okay, I'll go to the event. And he goes, "You'll meet the broader community there." So I came along, and I thought, you know what? I'll just pop in. I'll just pop in for half an hour and see what the Buddhists are like. So I came into there's a big hall up the road. So I went in. It was like hundreds and hundreds of people, and they were celebrating the life of a monk, a Tibetan Lama who had died the year before. It was called the death anniversary, and his name was Dado Rinpoche. They were celebrating his life, and the teacher Sangharakshita, who's founded the movement, he was presiding over the whole event. So after that evening, I thought I'd stay for half an hour, and in the end I stayed for the whole thing until it was dark outside, raining, and I had to catch the late bus home. And that event sort of was really, I call it the kind of the turning point for me. It was the event that made me know that I was a Buddhist, and that I would be a Buddhist for the rest of my life, and hopefully lifetimes. And what it was this: they were celebrating this monk, this Lama, who was from Tibet, and there was basically, each person came up and just shared the effect that he'd had on them. They'd gone to see him, or some of them he ran a school. So, he ran a school for Tibetan orphans. So some of the people worked at the school, and they were describing just the way he influenced them, the way he brought joy to their lives, how compassionate he was, how wise he was. So you just got this sense of this being who was just a huge being somehow, a small man, but somehow his spirit was huge. And he'd wake up early in the morning, sort of 4 o'clock in the morning, be meditating for several hours. Then he'd do a whole day at the school. And the pupils described him like they said that he was mother and father to them. So he had this real tenderness to him. At the same time, he also had his Buddhist students. He was a friend to my teacher, Bhante Sangharakshita. So he'd do his day at school. Then in the evenings, he'd be teaching. He'd then do his practices, and his day would carry on like that. But you didn't get a sense, and I think this was the first time I had this experience, you didn't get a sense that he was worn down with his duties. In fact, you got a sense that there was almost like he had a reservoir, a spring of energy, a spring of joy that just kept, springing, as these things do, just kept percolating up and actually permeating out. And there was something about the stories that people told about him that I got more and more drawn in by, mesmerized by. And I could see how people talking about him, it's almost like his qualities came into the room. And I could feel from kind of like, let me see what the Buddhists are like, to suddenly there I was with Dada Rinpoche, with this being who exuded all these qualities of love and compassion and awareness. So there was him. And then also there was another speaker that day who I couldn't remember her, I couldn't get her name at the time, but she was speaking and I thought, I need to meet her. And it was interesting, and I thought, why do I need to meet her? And I thought it's because she seems to have ethical sensibility. Now I have to tell you, if you'd said to me, what do you want from, the spiritual life? Ethical sensibility wouldn't have been at the top. It would have been, I don't know, visions or levitation or something. I wanted excitement. and for me, ethical sensibility wasn't there. Like a good thing to have, maybe necessary, but not lighting my fire, as it were. But there was something about the kind of authenticity in which she spoke, the sincerity in which she spoke, the sensitivity that she had, the kind of wisdom that seemed to come through, that I somehow in my mind thought, she has ethical sensibility and I need that. I didn't actually meet her for another 4 years, but she became the person who gave me my name, Suryagupta, and we're still very good friends today. Her name is Sangadevi. So those are the inspirations for me. So in that first evening, that whole day, after just being around for several weeks, I had encountered the three jewels of Buddhism. The Buddha, and the Buddha represents, obviously, the historical Buddha who founded the path, who discovered the universal laws, and discovered that if we live in accordance with the universal laws, like impermanence, like things that actions have consequences, then actually our freedom will come more and more from that. So the Buddha represents our potential. There's a historical Buddha, but it also represents our potential. And I saw the potential of what a human being could be through Dada Rinpoche. So in a way, I encountered an experience of the Buddha jewel, what's possible for us as human beings. I encountered the Dharma because, of course, we were meditating together that day. We were chanting. I didn't know what they were chanting, didn't understand it, but I could feel the energy that was coming as people chanted. I could feel their faith as well. And it was very interesting for me. I'd often put faith with being, if somebody was very faithful, for some reason, it's a wrong view, but for some reason I thought it meant they weren't very bright, yeah? So if you're faithful, I don't know why I had those two things together. So for me, I actually saw in this room people that were full of faith to the point where, they were, like prostrating to this, to the Dada Rinpoche, but also who were smart, who were really bright and smart. And I thought, yeah, you could have a real debate with them as well. So those qualities coming together were really interesting. And I could see they came from the practices. They came from the meditations, just clarifying your mind. But it also came from opening your heart. We have meditations that help clarify, deepen concentration, deepen focus, but also that opens the heart. And I could see them coming together. So the teachings, the Dharma, the practices, I was sold on. I thought, yes, I'm a Buddhist. I want to follow the Buddha. If the Buddha was anything like Dada Rinpoche, I want to follow the Buddha. Yes, I want to meditate. I've already had a little taste of what meditation could do. Yes, I'm going to follow the Dharma. I am a Buddhist. And the Sangha, the community, the spiritual community, I was like, well, it's friendly here. It's got a lot of energy here. I could see there was a lot of friendship at the heart of this event. The friendship that happened between Dada Rinpoche and my teacher, I could see that was really strong and really communicating itself. So I thought, yes, I can see there's a Sangha jewel. There's a way to practice as a community. There's friendship, but there was a but for me. Where's my place in this? Will I fit in? Will it work for me? The Sangha, the community, that I didn't know. And I went back to the centre that I'd been practicing at, well, I enjoyed it there. It was people were very friendly there. I enjoyed it. The teachings were good. But I definitely felt like, I guess maybe because I was a Londoner, it wasn't in London, so I felt a bit different there. I was the only person of colour at the centre as well. I was quite young compared to many of the other people there. There weren't many women at the centre as well. So there was a lot that could make me feel an odd one out. And so whilst I enjoyed it, I still didn't know, can I belong here? And anyway, one day the guy was giving a talk. It's funny, I don't remember any of the talks I listened to there, but I remember this one. And I only remember this part of the talk. I don't know what he said before. I don't know what he said afterwards. I just remember this section of the talk. And there I was listening to the talk, going, yeah, it's very interesting, yeah. And then he said this. He said that the Ananda, who was a Buddha's cousin, was meditating one day or reflecting, and he realised, he had this realisation that you need two things to live an effective spiritual life. You need virya, which is energy in pursuit of the good. You need consistent practice. You need to make an effort. You need to keep going, just discipline. You need that energy. And then he said, but you also need love. You also need connection. You need friendship. You need spiritual friendship. You need people that are going to help you on the path. And of course, he must have been thinking about the Buddha and all his other fellow monks. So he goes to the Buddha, Ananda goes to the Buddha and says, I've got it. Spiritual friendship, he says, is half of the spiritual life. Energy is the other half. Spiritual friendship is half of the spiritual life. So I'm like sitting there going, yeah, that all sounds good to me. And then, but this is a bit that I remember, because the teacher then says, but the Buddha said, no. Say not so, Ananda. Say not so. Spiritual friendship is the whole of the spiritual life. I was like, what did he say? What did you just say? The whole of the spiritual life. I just didn't get it. And it really confused me. I literally almost felt like I almost fell off my chair. I just kind of jolted. And I thought, I don't understand what you've just said. How is that true? What about meditation? What about wisdom? What about energy? What about how can friendship be the whole of it? So yeah, very confused by that. And it reminded me, I was listening to another spiritual teacher recently, and she was saying that she went along to one of her first talks. It was by a Hindu guru, and he was all in white. He was all very, it was California. So it was kind of a lovely, event like that. And she went along, she drank her cup of coffee, finished her fag, and went in to listen, his teacher. And she can't remember anything that he said apart from the one thing. When somebody said to him, what is the most important thing for me to be doing? in terms of my spiritual life. And his response was to be more and more who you truly are. And she thought, well, what a stupid answer. How can that be the most important thing? What about helping others? What about, be it of service? What about, so she had her experience of that. And why I was amused by that story is because she then said that how many decades later, when people ask her that question, that is now what she says. For me, it's taken, I would say, decades for me to really understand how spiritual friendship is really the whole of the spiritual life. So yes, I almost fell off my chair, and it confused me. And it confused me for a few reasons. One, as I've already described, what about all the other practices? What about all the other aspects of living a spiritual life? But it confused me because in the context I was in, I was like, well, I don't really know many people here. And we're all very, very different. And really, I probably wouldn't choose most of them to be my friends. That was how I felt. And so how can then they be like, because the idea is then, of course, you share your whole path. You share your meditation, you share your innermost secrets. You share the things you're struggling with. And I thought, well, I would struggle to do that here. That's how I felt. And then I had these really good friends who I'd get on the phone with, and we'd, talk for hours. Or we'd meet up and we'd really have a laugh, and I could feel like I could just be myself with them, and it was all easy. And, if I said, oh, that didn't go so well, oh, don't worry about it. They were just kind of really forgiving and easy. And so I thought, well, why are they not my spiritual friends? And how come people I don't really know so well, who don't really know me, how can they be my spiritual friends? So it really sort of confused me. Of course, the problem with my friends, my good friends, was that they weren't interested in meditation. So I was having this experience of wanting to really understand myself more and wanting to grow and develop consciously, and they weren't that interested in it. I mean, they'd listen to me and go, oh, that's nice, and that would be that, So it was also getting tricky as well, in some ways. So yes, the question I then had was, well, what is a good friend and what is a spiritual friend? What's the difference between them? And also, how do I form them in a way that actually feels really like authentic and positive and, just enjoyable as well? So actually, Bhante Sangharakshita, he actually wrote a paper about just before he died, not long before he died, called the good friend, the spiritual friend, and the false friend. And I have to say, I thought, oh, that's what I needed. I needed that paper to kind of understand what the differences were. So I'm going to share some of that with you. So he says, and it comes from a sutta called the Sigalavara Sutta. And basically he says there's a long list of how to be a friend and the difference between good friend and a spiritual friend. So it says, firstly, these are the duties of a friend. Firstly, generosity. Like, you have a good friend if you're just giving to each other in different ways, and it doesn't feel painful. It just feels like enjoyable. So generosity is one. Speaking kindly, not being overly critical, harsh to your friends. Again, you've got a good friend if they're doing that. Being considerate. Looking after, number 3 is looking after their welfare. So, looking out for them. They need some help. They're moving house. A friend will kind of go, okay, I'll come and help, right? 4, treat them as you would treat yourselves. That's always a tricky one, I think, for me, because sometimes we don't treat ourselves that well. And then we just pass that on to others. So it's like treating yourselves as you would wish, treating them as you would wish to be with yourself, with kindness and awareness. And keeping your promises. So those are at least 5 of the duties of a friend. And then, of course, if you're in a friend, it's a mutual relationship. And that is the difference between our other sets of relationships often. In this sutra, the Buddha just says there are all these other sets of relationships that also matter. So, parents and children, that set of kind of caregivers, that set of relationships matters. Spouses, partners, partners, just that matters as well. Employees and employers. Where you get teachers and mentors. What was the other one? The religious leaders and practitioners. There's all these different kinds of relationships that do matter. But friendship, he says, that set of relationship is the only set that is genuinely freely given. All the others, there's duty, there's obligations, or there's formalities to them, or there's certain expectations. But no one can make you be a friend if you don't want to be a friend. That is freely given. And apparently the word friendship, the etymology of it is the word free. So we freely give friendship. Can't be demanded of, can't expect that. In a sense, my friend, the woman who ordained me Sangadevi, I wanted her to be in connection with her, but I couldn't demand it. I just had to see if she wanted it. It was her choice to do so, yeah. And all the friends I have, it's their choice. So this is a difference between friendship and the other set of relationships. So friends, whilst we're being generous and we're speaking kindly and all the rest of it, our friends also have duties to us. So take care of us when we're sick. Watch over our property if we're neglectful. So if you've left your keys, your friend will go, here's your keys. They won't just go, well, just pick them up when she comes back. They'll actively find them for you. Be a refuge in times of fear. So this is a really important one. Your friend, if you're fearful, your friend can give you confidence. Just by listening, just by being alongside you. And sometimes the fears that we're having, the fears that have are really justified. There are difficult situations we might have to be in life. So having a friend alongside you can just give you confidence. Don't forsake your friend if they're in trouble. So this is an interesting one as well. Sometimes when we go through really difficult experiences, we have some of our friends are naturally there, and we just feel like the difference it makes when friends come around you when you're going through difficulties is just it makes all the difference. It can really support you through a lot. And there are times when your friend might not be fully there for you. So I've also had that. I felt very supported in my life, and there's been times I'm like, oh, but I thought you would be that person who would do that for me or help me with this situation. So that's been really interesting. And it's not that they are not good friends, but it's more that in that moment you're discovering probably two things. You're discovering one's own expectations, which you may not have checked out. There may be a reason why that friend can't particularly support you with whatever the challenge is. And you're also noticing the limitations. You're recognizing limitations. And then what you do with that is part of the path, is part of practice. So yes, being there with people when they're in trouble is a real strong act of friendship. And if we can't, then actually communicating that in some way or finding another way to support that person is an act of friendship. So not forsaking them with trouble. Show concerns for their dependents. So your friends might have, I don't know, pets, plants, children, just whatever. Everything whatever's in their sphere that they care for. That's also a care for you if you're a good friend. So that's the last one, yes. There's two more, actually, which I found really quite interesting, that it was added to the list. The friend shows you the way to heaven. That's what is in the sutra. And the friend will also even sacrifice their life for you. That's a good friend. Okay. Might have a way to go. I was quite intrigued by the heaven one. I think that means a friend points you to the good, yeah, to the ethical, to the good, to what's in your interest and others' interests. I think that's what that points to. But the sacrifice one is pretty deep, isn't it? You know, having said that, I think as there's lots of disasters going around in the world at the moment, lots of people are having to or feeling probably that heroism. And you see that people going out of their way, sometimes without even really knowing the other person. Strangers can become an amazing good friend in the moment. So it's within our capacity of human beings to really extend ourselves, to go beyond ourselves. So that's a friend. So false friend, I'll just say a few of the false friend things. So, and it's not like... I'll say the false friend and then I'll say what a spiritual friend is. I was going to say it's not like trying to be good in some ways. And if you look at that list, there might be things that you go, oh yeah, I'm really good at that. I'm actually quite generous, or I'm really considerate in my speech. But actually, I don't always keep my promises. So, you know, there's going to be things that we feel we're on the way with, and some things we really need to develop. So false friends now, let's see if I can find that list. Yeah. They're great talkers, it says. They know what to say, they flatter, they want you to feel good, but they also, and they'll make you make you even feel very special, actually. But also they might, conversely, there's often the flip side of the coin, they often can really tap into your weakness as well. So you might feel like great one minute and they're not great the next, and don't quite know where you are, yeah? Because they're not flattering you, giving you compliments to help you grow. They're giving you compliments for some other end, yeah? So that's one aspect. So a false friend also takes everything and doesn't give very much, of course. The other one says that they might be a friend out of fear. So that's interesting. They're worrying about losing something, and so therefore are being in relationship because they don't want to lose something. Or they're fearful of some other consequence. So that's really, I find that one's something to reflect on. It's almost like they're not freely being a friend, basically. There's some obligation of some kind. A false friend seeks their own end. Oh, this is interesting. A false friend talks of past favours they've done for you, future things they might do for you, but they're not available to do anything right now. A false friend will also actually will be rejoicing, glorifying in the things that you do, mistakes that you make, or even encouraging you to make mistakes. You know, or encouraging you to not do your best, basically. And I think it's a thing that can go on in our culture, you know, where you can get a group of people go, oh, I was totally wasted last night, or I was more wasted than you, and it's kind of suddenly there's this competition about who can be the most ineffective at life. And the false friend won't be too happy if you're making progress. And this is a very common thing. As you're leaving old behaviours behind, you're becoming more ethical, you're becoming more considerate, just as habits you just know are not in your interest, you stop doing them, and actually you realise that actually some of your friendships were based around some of those things. And then what do? And those friends may feel genuinely threatened by you changing, because it means that they might lose you. So a friend, I mean, these are just categories, really. We can all be a false friend, we can all be a good friend, we can all be a spiritual friend. But I mean, that's happened to me definitely, when I've gone through different experiences. A friend I can feel the discomfort, and what I do now is just simply, I'm a friend to them. I try and be an even more of a friend to them, really. And at the same time, standing in very much my own shoes. Like this growth really matters. And I don't compromise on that. And yet I can still be a friend to them. But it's a journey, it's something to navigate. It says, this is the Buddha, it says that the false friend will haunt the streets with you at untimely hours. Up to no good, basically, together. And enjoying that. So basically it's all about so what actually it leads us to what a spiritual friend is then. If a good friend has all those qualities, and a false friend we've just seen, what is a spiritual friend? So a spiritual friend is really a friend that's helping you not just be good. They're certainly not indulging all your worst excesses and habits. A spiritual friend is helping you to achieve liberation. Freedom from suffering. That is what a spiritual friend is. That is the goal of Buddhism, the Dharma. That's what the Buddha experienced, the possibility of being free from hatred, from greed, from ignorance. And that freedom releasing love, releasing wisdom, releasing compassion. That's what a spiritual friend is. But there's different types of spiritual friendship. So there's the friends who are really on the path alongside you, maybe, coming to the urban retreat together, checking things out together, going on your first retreats together. There's those friends that you meet who are really at the same kind of stage as you, and you're learning together. So you can share your mistakes, you can share your questions, and just really get to know each other. And then there's also the friends who are way, much further advanced than you. Hierarchical friends, we call them, vertical friends. They're further along the way, so they can be like a light to you. They've made some of the same mistakes that you're making. They've kind of overcome some of the things you're trying to overcome, and they've navigated their way, and they can show you it's possible. So we've got friends who are alongside us, friends that can support us, and then we've got friends that we can support. So actually just meditating every day, or having a meditation practice, that could mean that you're inspiring somebody in your life. You might not even know that person that you're inspiring necessarily. It might be somebody at work you just casually mentioned it to, and next thing they're like, you still meditating? Oh yeah, I'm still meditating. And it sows a seed. So those are the three types of spiritual friendships, but they take work. That's the thing. They don't. In a way, you can have friendliness with everybody, and in a way, one of the things my teacher says is that really being a Buddhist is really about ongoingly cultivating our capacity for friendliness. So you can literally be a friend to any other human being. But that level, even friendliness, takes practice, because we've got all our biases and we've got all our judgments, and you can walk into a room and decide already that you don't like that person, not sure about that person. And, you can sit on the tube. If you go on the tube, who are you going to sit? You're going to sit, you're going to stand, who are you going to sit near? All these views and judgments and biases go on, right? Just in our interaction in every day. So actually, just to have friendliness is already a practice. A friendliness to everybody, a sort of universal friendliness, is already a huge practice. But actual cultivating particular spiritual friendships takes effort. You sort of have to connect, you have to meet, you have to be prepared to share oneself and listen and receive another person's experience. You have to also work through difficulties. It doesn't mean just because you made a friend it's hold hands and into the sunset together. It's actually takes work. It's a human relationship. What I see now, though, looking back at my experience, is I sort of see, and the gratitude I have, that I know that my practices benefit from so many people, so many friendships. It's almost like a gardener looking at a mature-ish garden, in that, I can see, the fruits. I'm experiencing the fruits. I can see the fruits of effort. And I remember when the garden was bare. It felt like. I remember me having to sow the seeds and hope, that something, might develop. There's still lots of weeding and pruning, because actually to be a really effective friend means you have to be more and more truly who you are, which means letting go of our limiting conditions, seeing ourselves more clearly so we can actually see others more clearly as well. So they both go alongside each other. Being more and more who you truly are means that you're able to be more in connection with a friend. Extending the hand of friendship, cultivating friendship, means that you're going to have people in your lives who can see you more clearly, who can witness you, hold you to account as well, and support you in this journey, in this path that we're on. They say that the Buddha was the original spiritual friend. And he was an original spiritual friend because he uprooted greed. He uprooted hatred completely. He uprooted ignorance, which meant that all his interactions were suffused with loving kindness, with awareness. There were no edges. There were no barriers. There was no fear because there was no sense of separateness. We experience fear sometimes, an insecurity in our relationships because there's that constant push-pull and kind of like, do they like me, do they not like me? Am I safe, am I not safe? There's a constant oscillation that goes on within our experience and then goes on in our relationship with others. If you uproot greed, hatred and delusion, as the Buddha did, there's no fear, there's no sense of being separate. There is just love and wisdom that flows. And you can then begin to sort of live out this motto. And the motto came from Dada Rinpoche, this monk that made me see that I was a Buddhist. And his motto was, cherish the doctrine, cherish the practices, the teachings, the path. Don't take it for granted. Like I've been learning not to take it for granted. I don't take it for granted that this place exists. I don't take it for granted that I've got a way to work on my mind, a way to work on my emotions. I don't take it for granted that, there's people that have had much more experience than me in the world, keeping on sharing their teachings. So I'm benefiting again and again. So cherish the doctrine, he says. Cherish the opportunities you have to grow and develop. His next motto is live united. One of the universal laws of existence is that we are deeply interdependent. And when we see that we're not really separate. So then we want everything to grow. We want everyone to benefit. We want everyone to be free of suffering. And we live in solidarity then with others. Rather than against others, keeping others at bay, it's alongside each other. I'm just going to give this clip. I saw a great clip of the Fiji rugby players. They just beat Australia. I'm not a rugby person, but I just saw this clip, and they were going up a very steep mountain that was deeply muddy, and they would have struggled to get up that mountain by themselves, but they were holding each other, and they were chanting and singing. And they were embracing as they went up this kind of really steep hill mountain. Live united. It's like we can actually learn and grow through our relationships with others. And that is like a warm embrace. And then, so it's cherish the doctrine, live united, radiate love. In a way, what else is there to say? If there's no fear, there's love. If there's no biases, there's freedom to connect. there's freedom to know. If there's no hatred, there's no resistance. We're able to kind of be in relationship, a flowing set of relationships with each other. And it's not just us that are spiritual friends that benefit, it's the world, because that sort of energy cascades outwards. The more you grow, the more you're able to be a friend, the more you're going to take that wherever you go. At the Buddhist center, at work, at home, wherever, the more you're just going to flow with you. And it becomes who you are. So I wish us all to cherish the doctrine, learn the doctrine, cherish the doctrine, practice the doctrine, live united and radiate love amongst us and in the world. Thank you.